Good morning, everyone. Come, come, whoever you are welcome here. Whatever your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. However you came here, if you came alone or with others, you are welcome here. Whomever you love and however you speak, and whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. Whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. If you come with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands, then you are indeed welcome here. So, welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans, a congregation gathered in love since 1833 to seek wholeness and work for justice in the world. My name is Tucker. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him. If you're a visitor, we invite you to raise your hand so that we can greet you. Hey, hello, new friends. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. Also, throughout the service, we want to ensure that everyone in attendance can hear what we're doing up here in its entirety. If you're unable to hear any of the speakers, please wave your hand, give us one of these, and we'll do our best to speak up. If anyone of any age would like some activities or fidgets to help them be more present with the service, you can find pew packs on the table near the back door. Please help yourselves and then return them after the service if you don't mind. And after the time for all ages this morning, children and young folks are welcome to join our teachers in the kids' room, where we offer guided learning and play about UU values. That's out this door down the hallway and on your right. If you want to learn more about our religious exploration programming, you can find a member of our RE team during coffee hour. RE team folks, raise your hands. Oh, hey friends, beautiful, thank you. So, we are a lay-led congregation. On Sunday mornings, we ask UU ministers, other religious professionals, leaders from social justice organizations, and our very own members to be voices of hope, courage, and spiritual or intellectual transformation from our pulpit. Our worship leader today is my beloved dear friend, Dietz. Hello. Welcome. Dietz, all pronouns used with respect, is the executive director of the Louisiana Coalition on Criminalization and Health. They are a patient navigator. God, gender clinic, has done so much work in terms of HIV and cancer care. There are so many things to say about Dietz, but they're a beloved comrade and deeply welcome here. Thank you. Would you like to say anything to introduce yourself?
I think I'm probably going to talk a lot into the mic later, so I'll save y'all. I'll come back.
Perfect. Thanks, baby. Okay, so please rise in body or spirit as we light the chalice of our heritage. And join me in reading the words that you'll find in your order of service. We light this chalice to ignite the divine spark of the universe, whose pronouns have always been plural, a co-creation of brilliance and diversity, a tapestry of souls perfected. Please remain as you are for our opening hymn, which you'll find in your teal hymnal. And the number is a little wrong in your order of service. It's 1014. The song is called Standing on the Side of Love. The composer has updated the lyrics, thinking about disability justice and accessibility and how we show up for each other. The updated lyrics are Answering the Call of Love. So those are written in your order of worship. And again, that's 1014. Please be seated, get comfy. Now is the time that we welcome all of those here who are either young or young at heart to come join us up front for our Time for All Ages story. And Gabe, please take it away.
Thanks. It means grab the other microphone, Gabe. All right. Thank you so much for joining me up front, and thank you to everybody who is in the back. Today we are reading a story by Maya Cristina Gonzalez. It is in both Spanish and English, and I'm going to read both of them. Hi, come join me. You want a little seating pad? Yay. All right. The book is called I Know the River Loves Me. Yo sé que el río me ama. All right, let's get started. I didn't practice this one-handed, so, we're improving. I am here to visit one of my best friends in the world, the river. She loves me. Estoy aquí para visitar a uno de mis mejores amigos en el mundo. El río me ama. I know the river loves me because I can hear her calling me as soon as I get close. Yo sé que el río me ama porque tan pronto que me acerco, le escucho llamarme. She jumps and sings when she sees me. Cuando me ve, salta y canta. Waves, those fishies. I run to her side and she cools me down. Corro a su lado y me refresca. Look at that cool water running. I know the river loves me because when I look into her face, she is happy to see me. Yo sé que el río me ama porque cuando lo miro, está contento de verme. You see that reflection in the water? The river saying hello. Yeah, exactly. When I jump on her back, she holds me up. When I leap into her arms, she takes me in. Cuando brinco sobre su espalda, me sostiene. Cuando salto, en sus brazos, me acoge. You ever hug water? You let water hug you, huh? She tugs on my hair and my arms, and we flow together. Me acaricia el pelo y los brazos y fluimos juntos. Gives a whole other meaning to going with the flow, huh? I watch her change like me. In the winter, she is low and quiet. In the summer, she is full and loud. Veo que el río cambia como cambio yo. En el invierno está bajo y tranquilo. En el verano está lleno y ruidoso. The river takes care of me and I take care of the river. I only leave behind what already belongs to her. El río me cuida y yo cuido al río. Solo dejo atrás lo que ya le pertenece. We gotta pick up our trash. Yeah, right on this page, huh? Wow. I see some froggies and some fishies too. I know the river loves me. The next time I come, she will be here waiting for me, singing my name. Yo sé que el río me ama, porque cuando yo regrese a visitarlo, él me está esperando cantando mi nombre. Yeah? Oh, I see some birds too. What else do we see? Flowers. What color are the flowers? Big pink flowers, big beautiful birds, just nature surrounding us. I know the river loves me and I love the river. Yo sé que el río me ama y yo amo al río. Yeah. Anything else you see? Fish, butterflies. All right, the end. Thank you, everyone. Remember to love the water as it loves you.
Thanks, y'all. Children are welcome to spend the rest of the service here with us or to visit the kids' room out the store down the hall on the right. Go off, choir. Thank you so much. So now is the time for our meditation. It's a time for fully arriving, letting your body catch up to you as you've made it to this space. Today, for our meditation reading, I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from a book that I truly adore, that was actually introduced to me by Dietz back when we both used to work in the gender clinic at Crescent Care. It's called We Are Everywhere: Protest, Power, and Pride in the History of Queer Liberation. It's incredible. The photos alone, I mean, they're stunning. If you want to check it out afterward, please come see. I'm going to talk a little bit about the early days of the epidemic, very much acknowledging that many people in this space lived through that, and we are still living in it. So take care of yourself. Do what you need to do. In June of 1981, a rare type of pneumonia afflicting gay and bisexual men in Los Angeles was discovered. By the time the report appeared, 2 of 5 people were dead. In the weeks that followed, only a few gay periodicals and virtually none of the mainstream press ran stories on what Boston's gay community news called gay pneumonia. A handful of physicians in New York City were treating gay and bisexual patients diagnosed with Kaposi sarcoma, a disease equally as rare as the pneumonia seen in Los Angeles. The news suggested an epidemic. Typically, this would have been met with press releases and public health alerts. Instead, there was silence. Once the Times ran the rare cancer story, patients and doctors had good reason to be optimistic about the flood of assistance that was sure to follow. 5 years earlier, for example, Altman's first Times article on the strange illness afflicting American Legion conventioneers resulted in 9 front-page stories in the paper in a single month. From there, the CDC spent $10 million containing what they called Legionnaire's disease, which claimed 34 victims. By comparison, as of late July 1981, at least 43 people had died of what doctors designated gay-related immune deficiency, or GRID. If the responses to the mystery outbreaks were any guide, certainly the national infrastructure, hospitals, emergency workers, researchers, government officials, and the media would turn its attention to these inexplicable maladies. Instead, there was nothing. In October 1982, the deaths of a handful of Chicago area residents from what appeared to be cyanide-laced Tylenol activated a massive governmental response. More than 100 government agents investigated, 1,100 FDA employees tested 1.5 million capsules of Tylenol, and the Department of Health and Human Services issued new regulations on tamper-resistant packaging. And Tylenol's parent company, Johnson & Johnson, spent $100 million during the fallout. Only 7 people died from contaminated Tylenol that month, while the CDC reported that 634 Americans had AIDS and that 260 had died. To San Francisco's Cleve Jones, the government sent this message, echoed by the press and private industry, was unmistakable. Let them die. There were massive marches in May. Callan, Richard Berkowitz, Joe Sonnabland, and Richard Dworkin finished their most enduring work, How to Have Sex in an Epidemic, One Approach. Sex doesn't make you sick, diseases do, they declared. And once you understand how diseases are transmitted, then you can begin to explore medically safe sex. And that's when gay people invented safe sex. What's over isn't sex, just sex without responsibility, they said. Distributing the booklet in early June, the authors waited for a backlash. It never came. In fact, the printing sold out, as did a second printing, and then a third. Letters poured in, condoms appeared in queer social spaces, and safe sex got chic, and disease transmission rates plummeted. In June of 1983, AIDS activists from both coasts insisted on attending the upcoming Lesbian and Gay Health Conference in Denver. Despite different approaches to virtually everything, the group forged common ground and produced the founding document of the People with AIDS movement. Quote, "We condemn attempts to label us as victims, a term which implies defeat," the Denver Principles began. "And we are only occasionally patients, a term which implies passivity, helplessness, and dependence on the care of others. We are people with AIDS. Having taken ownership of language, the men recognized people with AIDS as catalysts for social change, insisting they could and should be their own health experts. People with AIDS had a right to full and satisfying sexual emotional lives, they said, to be involved at every level of decision-making, and to quality medical treatment without discrimination. These ideas, while largely based on feminist health principles, nonetheless marked the beginning of a new form of patient advocacy, one that fundamentally rearranged the roles of patients, doctors, researchers, and pharmacists. In other words, a group of gay and bisexual men in Denver, inspired by lesbian feminists, changed millennia of medical practice." And the story goes on. Lord knows the story goes on. Much more government violence ensued. Proud queer and trans resistance ensued. Multiracial, cross-class coalitions for justice are the reason why we have medical interventions today, like PrEP, PEP, and rapid HIV tests at events across the city. But let's take a moment to soften your gaze, settle your eyes, and remember, 700,000 people in the US have died since the beginning of the epidemic in 1981, and 41.4 million people have died since the start. Let us take a moment to remember the lovers, siblings, parents, chosen family, comrades, both who we've lost and who are still here. Let us remember the healthcare workers, the death doulas, and the folks who stuck around. Let us honor the survivors, the millions of people living with HIV today. Let us remember the organizers, the activists, and every blessed person in this book, and all of the photos of this book. Let us remember and honor a generation lost. May we honor their legacy in the ever-present fights for justice here in Louisiana. May their memory be a blessing. We'll now take a few moments of silence, and we'll close that time by singing together our hymn, Voice Still and Small, the words for which are in your order of service. Please join me as we read our responsive reading, a short selection from George M. Johnson's All Boys Aren't Blue, found in your order of worship. I'll begin, and please respond with the text in italics. I miss you a lot, especially when I see your community continue to face violence for simply existing.
However, there is beauty in knowing that whichever way I go, I was here and I left here being myself.
A lesson I learned from you and your journey. Your story will now live on forever through my words.
So that whoever may read them can know they exist because you existed.
That's all you. Do you need some water?
I have some right down here. Margot was so kind. I may take a little sip in the middle, y'all.
Thank you.
Being in this space makes me emotional. I've had the privilege to be here once before, talking with y'all about punk as a resistance strategy, and it was honestly so much fun. I just want to offer this congregation a lot of gratitude. It was a really exciting way to, I don't know, share with people about what it feels like to be in resistance and the different ways that we try and do it. But I'm not here to talk about punk today. Tucker actually came to have me talk with y'all about how I'm a government goth in my daytime job. As they mentioned, I am the director of the Louisiana Coalition on Criminalization and Health. That's a mouthful, so we say LCCH for short. And we are a coalition of mostly people who are living with HIV, clinicians, attorneys, advocates, allies, accomplices, all trying to focus on mobilizing people power at the intersection of the carceral justice system and health. What an absurd thing to have to say out loud, that there's anything that the carceral justice system should have to do with our bodily autonomy, and this is popping up everywhere for us right now. We focus on HIV criminalization, but what's happening with reproductive health, what's happening with trans rights, people, regardless of documentation status, who are afraid to go to the doctors because they're afraid they might get picked up by ICE. This is the intersection that we work at, even though criminalization is at our core. And just out of curiosity, because it's always good for me to kind of know what the knowledge level is in the room, raise your hand if you had heard about HIV criminalization before this sermon today. Right on, okay, keep your hands raised. How many of you feel like you understand it well enough that you could explain it to anybody? Right. That's why, and I see some people who are my beloveds who come to these kinds of things often with their hands still raised, so try and take that with a grain of salt. But the reason that I often start talking about HIV criminalization in this way is because even people who are living with HIV don't understand how this law could impact them. I spent over 10 years as a patient advocate working with people who were newly diagnosed, and also folks who had had a hard time staying, going to the doctor, also folks undergoing cancer treatment, trying to also manage HIV. And I gotta tell you, it was really rough every single time someone came to me, not because they just wanted to learn more about the law, but because someone was threatening to use it against them. And the tough thing about talking to bigger groups of people like this about HIV criminalization, about the law itself, or why it needs to change, or the consequences of it, is that most of us have not been given the adequate health education to even understand how HIV functions today. Most people don't actually trust their gut. If you say, how is HIV transmitted? People be like, sex. And they don't even trust themselves. And then it's well, how else? And people are like, blood. And people get really confused because we haven't been given definitive access to new information that can make us feel confident that we can even accurately assess our risk. And that's not our fault, but we're all living behind the consequences of it. And these laws that I'm going to tell you just a little bit about that my coalition is fighting are a direct result of people not having good current access to HIV health ed. So in order for us to talk about crim, I got to talk about 101. I was a health educator for over 10 years, and Tucker said that I could do a little bit of call and response as long as I wasn't obnoxious with it. So I'm curious from the group. We talked about how HIV can be transmitted. Does someone want to call out an old superstition or a fear about how HIV can be transmitted that we know HIV can't be transmitted that way anymore? Public toilets, yeah, absolutely. What else we got? Kissing, airborne, I heard someone say. Anything else? sharing silverware, so through saliva, biting, spitting, scratching, all of those things. And I see some people like kind of shaking their heads like, man, that's tough. Well, we created a law when we didn't understand HIV very well in this state in 1987, before we had a real understanding of how it was transmitted, before we had any treatment of any kind, and when prevention was kind of like in the day. We have a more recent proxy. Remember in COVID when for a second we were like, spray all your groceries down with alcohol? You know, like when we don't understand something, we throw in anything that could make something make sense so that we can feel a little bit safer. But I'm happy to say here now today that we've known since the 90s that HIV can't be transmitted through biting, spitting, or scratching, or general exposure. But again, our current law doesn't reflect that. And half of all charges in the last 5 years, half of them have been ways that HIV could never have scientifically been transmitted. But the law still persists. So before I get too deep into the law, I also want to talk about prevention. Tucker mentioned PrEP, but how many people in the room have heard of PrEP? Heck yes, I'd love to see that. Even like 5 years ago, wouldn't have been so many hands. But for anyone who didn't raise their hand, just really quickly, PrEP is a preventative medication that you can take every day via an oral medication, or they actually have long-acting injectables now. You can get a shot that lasts for 2 months, for 6 months, and they're still working on a shot that could last for a whole year. So we don't have a cure for HIV and we don't have a vaccine, but we have really good tools for managing prevention where we can take control of our own sexual health mitigation, right? Like we don't have to worry about as many of the other negotiations if we can take that step for ourselves. And there's one more medication I want to let you know about that's important too, and that's post-exposure prophylaxis, which is PEP. If you have an exposure or believe you had an exposure to HIV, if you can get this medication within 72 hours, it essentially eliminates the chances that you'll contract HIV. And there's like really fun, like sexy ones like DoxyPEP that like cover against like chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis and all those other things, but we're not gonna talk about that today. But you need to see like the whole portrait of it to see that we have lots of tools to prevent and treat HIV. And I'm gonna say one more time before I talk about what they actually mean, but the laws still persist. And I think it's important to note that HIV doesn't look like it does today, or it looks different today than it did back when the epidemic first started. I don't love the stage, it's not a death sentence anymore, because I feel like that's like kind of a wild oversimplification of what it means to be living with HIV, with stigma as it is now. But the good news is that it's considered a chronically manageable illness. Most people only have to take 1 or maybe 2 pills a day. The side effect profile is like kind of non-existent, especially compared to the bad old days when people had to take handfuls of pills. And some people who survived the early pandemic said that they only survived because they didn't take the early medications, while the other half says they only survived because they did. So, you know, we're not where we used to be. And it's also important to note that people who are living with HIV actually live within months of the same expected average lifespan as folks who aren't. So this is a really radically different world, but all right, I'm gonna make you raise your hands one more time. How many people learned at least one new thing of all the stuff I just said? Yeah, right? So we don't have a level setting. Even people who are like, yeah, I kind of understand this. There's still so much that we have so much to be joyful of. We just stayed quiet for a moment to honor all the people who we lost. They didn't have those tools, but we have them now, and the law still persists. And I'm gonna ask one more thing. How many of y'all heard about U equals U? Fewer hands. How many people have heard of U equals U, or undetectable equals untransmittable? Okay, now we got a hand. Cool, more hands go up. But for the hands that didn't raise, I'm gonna make this simple and short too. When people are on effective HIV medication, the amount of virus in their system goes down, 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 until it gets to a point where we can't even detect it anymore, and we call it undetectable. And when someone gets to that level, HIV is scientifically impossible to transmit to somebody else. Isn't that extraordinary? What an extreme, yes, come on, yes, I am here for the audience saying yes for that. That's so exciting. If you think about the fear and the anxiety that people who are living with HIV had to live with for decades. And I started working in the field in 2011. U equals U data wasn't confirmed until 2017. So I had the joy of getting to talk to patients about this. People who spent a lot of time, even if they always used condoms, even if they were like really managing their life pretty well, were still kind of scared that if they became intimate with anybody, that there could be a chance of transmission. U equals U revolutionized the way we can think about HIV. It liberated people who are living with HIV. But even if it's scientifically impossible for you to transmit HIV to somebody else, our laws do not reflect that. So let me tell you a little bit about the law, that I keep referencing. Like I said, 1987, people were scared, and if we give people the benefit of the doubt, maybe they were making a law just to try and throw anything at the wall that might stop what was happening. But when you look at the fine print, the conversations in the committee rooms were very clear that they were instead trying to control how queer people had sex. It was not about public health intervention. It was about punishment for behavior that they deemed immoral. And we know that healthcare, no one gets a disease because of morality, my friends. It doesn't happen that way. And while the LGBTQ community is disproportionately impacted by HIV, anyone can contract HIV. HIV doesn't care about gender, doesn't care about sexuality. It's a disease state. And yet we attach more morality to this disease state than, I'm gonna say almost any other disease state. And we don't legislate against any other disease state. But just to give it a little bit of a national context too, when the government was saying nothing about HIV, nothing at all, nothing. When the first money from the federal government came down the pipeline, we're talking millions of dollars to state health departments that had no support from the federal government to help them mitigate the epidemic. The government said, well, you can have this money as long as you create an HIV criminal law. They institutionalized criminalizing people who are living with HIV and held it against funding. And what were states supposed to do? So originally, all 50 states in 1990 had an HIV criminal law, but as the pandemic continued and the criminalization laws began to show how they weren't effective, how they worked against public health initiatives, they increased stigma. They made people scared to get tested. Because if you got tested and found out you could be criminally liable, would any of us want to weigh our history of who might be able to use that kind of information against us, especially for feeling fine, if we don't feel sick? It really works against testing initiatives. So the government rolled back. They were like, actually, that doesn't work. You don't have to do that anymore. But the thing is once you make a law, it's a lot harder to unmake a law. So right now, we are still one of 31 states that has an HIV criminal law in the book. And even though the Department of Justice, the CDC, SAMHSA, every reputable public health body has said that these laws don't work, we are still laboring to change them. So in our state, the law really depends on whether or not you've told somebody your HIV status, whether or not you've disclosed that you're living with HIV. And the way that they say, once you disclose your status, you kind of have to do that no matter what. They say if you expose anybody through any means or contact. But we're exposed to each other in here, right? What does exposure even mean? There's no definition. So this broad definition means that once you follow the law and tell someone your status, and if you don't have good proof, if you didn't document it some kind of way, someone can turn that around on you right away. If you don't do X, Y, Z, I'm gonna tell the cops you never told me your status. And that sounds presumptive, but that was exactly the situation that I was in the first time I was ever actually working with a patient who was living with HIV, who was entrapped in a domestic violence relationship. And she couldn't leave because she had no way to prove that she had disclosed her status. And when I tried to think how we could document it some way, that we could put something in writing that would protect her, she was like, what makes you think that a jury is gonna believe any of that? Because HIV stigma is so extreme. We still link HIV, even if we believe better in our higher brains, people still link HIV with criminality in some back part of their brain. And when you're talking about, it's actually only 6 people because it's a sex offense in this state. Exposure to HIV is a sex offense. You only need 6 jury members. And that would mean 6 jury members would have to have the same amount of information that all y'all raise your hand saying, I didn't know that before. That's a gamble. And then your status is public. So even though the charges happen within this law are really violent and terrible, the consequences are extreme, the real violence of this law happens in ways that we can't count. When people have their statuses leveraged against them because they followed the law, because they disclosed their status, and now someone has this tool to use it against them. So what is our coalition doing? What are we trying to do? We knew that the legislature did not have the same kind of knowledge that even we had at a base level, so we did a study resolution. I went to all 9 public health regions of the state and talked with people who are living with HIV about how this law had impacted them. And we put it all in a report, and we went to the legislature, and we taught them all about it, and they have a legislative report that came out of it that talks about how HIV criminalization doesn't work in the ways that people thought that it did. And we were all ready to bring our bill up. We were like, okay, great, they're educated. And then the conversation in that room was like, oh no, oh, they don't know enough. We gotta pump the brakes on this one. So we pulled the bill back because we were afraid that if we had continued those conversations, that people's level of stigma against people who are living with HIV and lack of basic understanding about the science could maybe potentially make the law even worse. So we kept persisting. We thought we were gonna take last year off to like really hit the ground with that education. We were really gonna use that report for all it was worth. And then a well-meaning but very deeply uninformed Democrat from Monroe tried to introduce a bill that would have offered the same consequences for exposure to any STI, including HPV and HSV, which almost all of the population gets. The CDC doesn't even track it, neither does the state. And thankfully, we held it back. But I think one of the reasons that we held it back was that people were all of a sudden not thinking, oh, well, it's just people who are living with HIV over there that are dealing with this thing, and all of a sudden had to be like, oh no, could that happen to me? Could that happen to someone who I love? And then I think people got really mobilized behind HB 76, and we were able to successfully hold it back, and even wound up in a second study to once again show that we don't have to worry about HIV in the ways that we used to. And when we criminalize anything, we push people away from doing the things that are healthy for them, that are safe for them. Disclosure of your status is something that is deeply personal. People who are living with HIV, of which, by the way, in our state, between 71 to 85% of all people who are living with HIV in our state are virally suppressed. So they can't transmit HIV to anybody else. But those people still have to live with this shadow over their head that anyone could use their status against them. So thankfully, the second study that we did was successful again. It went to show that when people learn a little bit more of this new, very nuanced issue, that they can usually come around and understand what we're trying to do. So I'll say that our first bill that we moved, it asked for everything. We wanted pathways for justice for people who had been charged when there was no chance of HIV transmission. We wanted all kinds of protections that I am happy to get nerdy with you about later, but right now we're just fighting for the science. And it's hard for me to explain what it feels like to have to negotiate with people behind science and to have to negotiate with district attorneys who are like, but if they spat at us, we still need to be able to charge people, even when we know there's no risk. The stigma around HIV is extraordinary, but I think that there's room in this bill that we're trying to move right now to at least give people the peace of mind that knowing that they don't have to worry about their livelihood being completely ruined because someone didn't understand basic HIV science. So the bar is low, my friends. It's really, really low. But the cool thing is about our coalition is that even when we have to buck and flip and make different choices, like kind of on the fly, like the legislature demands, we really love what we're doing, and we're super fun too, if I'm gonna say so, because you can't really do this work or like sustain it if you don't actually like enjoy each other. If the spirit of community, of us fighting together, isn't worth as much as the fight, even if we don't win it, then like, I don't know if we could ever get anybody to the table. So I know that we don't have all of the time to dig into all of the nuances of the law, but this year, as our legislative session starts tomorrow, my friends, if you hear about HB 808, that is the law we're really just trying to bring the law into. It's a bill that's trying to bring the law into alignment with modern science. I have some 101 pages back there, or 101 pages back there with a little more information, and I'd love to talk to anybody afterwards. But once more, I just want to offer, if you've ever loved someone who is living with HIV, if you are a person who's living with HIV, or if you're like myself, a member of a new generation that lost so many elders, so much brilliance, so much creativity, I hope that you take a moment to educate yourself a little bit and maybe like check out what we're trying to do. Because right now, when we are just so on the defense, it feels like we're fighting so hard to hold the bad things back. It feels really exciting to try and change something for the better, to fight for something that can make people's lives a lot less stressful. And I don't know, just do our part to fight for something that feels good to fight for, instead of just holding back all of the violence that keeps coming. And I just want to offer y'all a little bit of gratitude again for letting me come up here today and talk at y'all about something I'm equally passionate about, but is slightly less fun than talking about being punk. But we bring our whole selves to the legislature, to our relationships, to each other. So just a lot of gratitude to you all. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Thank you, my friend. As we move toward closing out, we're going to have an offering. We'll hear some beautiful music, and then we're going to share some announcements about all the good things coming up in this community and beyond. Generosity is one of our UU shared values. As UUs, we agree to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We understand that generosity is a spiritual discipline that connects us to each other in interdependent relationships of mutuality. We can practice our act of generosity either by placing an offering in the collection plate or by using the information in your order of service to give electronically. This is how we keep this church going. Thank you.
All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life, such is being. Such is spirit, such is love. All this joy, all this sorrow, all this promise, all this pain, such is life, such is being, such is spirit, such is love. Such is spirit, such is love.
Thank you, Dwayne. Gifts to this community of faith are gratefully received. Let us acknowledge these gifts by reading together the words in your order of service. This gift from the abundance of my life blesses me, our ministries, and the world. Thank you. So giving in the offering plate and pledging are a part of how we steward this congregation. There are countless other ways to serve, build community, and share our love with the rest of the city. Here are a few opportunities coming up. Today, we have a congregational meeting after this service. Woo! Yeah, I hope to see you there. Members and friends are invited to join us. We'll start at approximately 12. Don't know what time it is, but it will be soon after this. And there will be a special vote on changing our bylaws, so please join us if you're able. There's a few different working groups within this community that are looking for volunteers. So who enjoyed Gabe's Time for All Ages story today? Yes, beautiful. If any of you are interested in doing a Time for All Ages story, we can choose the book for you, no pressure. But we love having other folks up here. So if you're interested, you can talk to Sarah Pixon, who I see is not here today, but you can also talk to me. The fundraising and Christmas tree sales teams are getting organized this year. Please talk with Ann McLean. Raise your hand. Yes, thank you. And then our worship arts team, we're in a moment of transition and receiving new people. Again, we're a lay-led community. That means we don't have one minister. So there's always different angels and icons who are up here filling this space. If you want to help plan what happens here, please join us. You can talk to me about that. The Gillespie Center Memorial Breakfast, Community Breakfast, is next Saturday here at 11 a.m. The theme is War in Iran, the 10 Commandments, no ice and no kings. Yeah, come join us. Sunday, March 15th, after the service upstairs in the office, the Religious Exploration team at First UU invites you to join us for our youth-led Crew of Kids for Change money counting pizza party. As a reminder, the money that the young folks have raised this season is going to our partner church in St. Rose that's helping people sheltering in place during heightened ICE presence in our community. Please join us to count the money, eat some pizza, and celebrate the amazing young people, the youngest fundraisers of our community. Thank you. And lastly, join us next week for a service with Reverend Sarah Green on feasting, fasting, and revelation. So, please stand and body your spirit and join in our chalice extinguishing, which is, just kidding, sorry. Oh, you're so right, I'm so sorry. There is a spotlight announcement. Thank you, angels who reminded me, thank you so much. Am I inviting up Claudia Barker? Yes. And Kathy Hubble, thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kathy Hubble, and for me this is a really joyful day in the sense that while we try to show people how much we appreciate the volunteerism they do for this congregation, today we're going to do it in a very tangible way, in a very public way. For 50 years we have been presenting the Theodore Parson Clapp Award, and in the 50 years since we've introduced it, we've presented it to 38 people within our congregation. And today we are going to announce the presentation of 2 more Parson Clapp recipients. The award is named after our founding minister, Theodore Clapp. It was initiated in 1976 by longtime church members who wanted to formally recognize First Unitarian Universalist Church heroes. The Theodore Clapp Award is for the church members who work year in and year out, often with little or no recognition. To be defined as an appropriate Clapp Award recipient, a person must make a continuous contribution to the church in the form of volunteer service for a period of at least 10 years. Recipients of the award may, by their service, be considered church leaders. However, it is their behind the scenes and in the trenches efforts that are being recognized. Recognition with other church awards, including the Charles A. Allen Award, which is presented by the Board of Trustees to honor somebody who did some outstanding service in the previous year, or the Oscar Flowers Award, which is awarded by the Religious Education team for the most significant volunteer in the area of religious exploration for the preceding year. In any event, receiving one of those 2 awards does not preclude one from receiving the Clapp Award. Somebody once said that this is sort of like a lifetime achievement award. I received it 20 years ago, and 20 years later, I'm still here. So, in any event, you know, We keep working, and this is certainly true of the other people who are still with us in this congregation. The working rules of the Parson Clapp Award. The committee is defined as former award winners who are still active in the church and so aware of the contributions of time and effort of congregational members. Awards will be made from time to time as the committee determines that there is an individual to be recognized. There shall not be an annual award, but awards may be given annually. The Theater Clap Committee is independent of the formal organization of the church and exists as a self-governing and self-perpetuating body. The committee will be activated by call of any member, with all members participating in any decisions. The committee as a whole will decide on the manner and time of the presentation of the award. And now I would like to turn this over to Claudia Barker or Margot Anderson, who will be announcing the 2025 Parson Clapp Award recipients.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Okay, who's going to get, there's two of us, so there's going to be 2 awards. So which 2 people are going to get to bring home the clap today? Our first recipient. I'm going to read a few things that some other folks have contributed about this person. So you can think about if you recognize this person. She guided our congregation at a time of great change, managing the transition from our building on Jefferson and Claiborne to our new home here at Rain with wisdom and grace. It wasn't just the sorting and the packing and the sale itself and the Herculean task of moving out of the space we had loved and lived in, but this person acknowledged and honored the tender feelings that accompanied all this change, reassuring the congregation in the face of many unknowns and leading with love. Another person wrote, when she joined the church in 1987, she was very active in our religious exploration team. She then took a hiatus and rejoined the church in 2014, and she was a member and then for a while the chair of the worship team and was a creative officiant in many beloved ritual services. And yet more folks mentioned she's given tirelessly of her time, talent, joyful spirit in many ways over several years at FUNO, chairing the worship team, still is our communications chair, reviewing the e-digest submissions every week with Sarah Pixon working to make sure it gets out and posting news on our Facebook page. This person served as board president for 2 years, guiding us through 2 of our most difficult times when we had to lay off a minister for financial reasons, and then when we decided to sell our building and former church building to move here to this chapel. So, and I can say for myself, having served with this person on the worship team, just what a comfort this person always is. If you have a sticky situation, if you've messed up the margins on the order of worship, never makes it seem like too much trouble to come and help you. In fact, she's been known to answer the phone on a Sunday morning, helpline, knowing what I was calling about. This winter makes our world so much more beautiful, more magic, and more purple. And of course, this first award goes to Beverly Rainbolt. I think you can rest and listen to
And we're lucky we have a second honoree to talk about this morning. This person joined the church in 1994, and shortly after joining, she partnered with other members of the congregation from our old location on Jefferson Avenue, helping us move to the newly purchased building on Claiborne. She has been a steady volunteer for all manner of fundraising events, including rummage sales, Christmas tree sale, hosting a musical event with our former music director, Betsy McGovern. She has served on the Board of Trustees for many years, on and off, as well as on the finance team. And in addition to all of those things, this person has also brought her knowledge, skills, and social workers' compassion to serve on the worship team and on the board of the Center of Ethical Living and Social Justice Renewal, which was a nonprofit that we founded to do the important work after Hurricane Katrina. Also serving most recently on the Board of Trustees. I can tell you personally that our congregation benefits from this person's keen eye for detail in all the ways that she serves. As a member of the team that negotiated the building sale, she protected our church's assets through careful examination of the sales agreement. She shares her knowledge of money management, capital investment, and budgeting with all of us on the finance team. And she shepherds the church's human resources as the board liaison to the personnel team. This is a lot of work. She also continues to do all this after spending nearly a year offering countless volunteer hours, helping to do the physical work of our church's move, co-leading with her buddy Beverly on that very, very big project. I'm thrilled to be able to announce that the CLAP award goes to Stephanie Baus.
Heck yeah. Thanks so much, y'all.
Woo! Both
Thank
of
you.
these women also find time to show up for protests. I know this because we've been there together, help buy and wrap gifts for our partner church, and are always working to manifest First Church's social justice mission in the larger community. Please join me in honoring Beverly and Stephanie.
Gosh, it's a big day. How could I forget a thing that happens not even every year? That's, wow. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you, my friends. Okay. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in our chalice extinguishing, which you'll find in your order of worship. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together with Him. Please remain as you are for our closing hymn, which you'll find in the teal hymnal, number 1017, We Are Building a New Way. Thank you, beautiful people. Please connect with Dietz to hear more about what's going to be happening during legislative session. There's information in the back about that as well. At its founding, our church was known as the Strangers Church. Please turn, greet your neighbor, join us for coffee hour just outside the back doors on your left, and stick around for our congregational meeting. Thank you.